Let's move on and talk about the Europa League final. Gary Breen is with us this morning. Gary, how you doing?
I'm well, thanks, guys. Good morning.
2 all-English affairs this week to look forward to. I saw various people hoping that the Champions League final won't be a Premier League game by any other means, and that actually we'll get a really good final. Let's talk about this game first before we get your thoughts on the Champions League final, though. What kind of a game do you expect between Arsenal and Chelsea?
To be honest, I expect one full of goals because of the very fact that they both so poor defensively. I think there's match winners throughout the team, great individuals who can turn it in a split second, the likes of Aubameyang for Arsenal, Hazard for Chelsea. But defensively, I can't see those defences keeping in those quality players out, so I expect goals.
I presume you've seen the pictures this morning. Maurizio Sarri's on the back of every newspaper because there was a row in training between David Luiz and Gonzalo Higuain. These things happen all the time. It's not that big a deal. It's just that the photographers were there, right? We shouldn't read too much into this.
No, they do happen all the time. And the problem we have is that Sarri's so demonstrative. Rather than just keeping it in-house, he makes a big show of it. I think Chelsea tried to put a little bit of spin and say that his frustration was born out of the fact they couldn't do their set pieces. That's a nonsense. But we've seen it before with Sarri in terms of the League Cup final. What you have to say is that since that game, he has changed his philosophy. He's altered that Sarri ball, and it's made him more direct, more defensively sound. So they have finished the season strongly. You have to say, looking at finishing third in the Premier League is an incredible achievement.
The line's not great there, Gary. We'll give you a quick call back straight away, and we'll be back over to you in 2 seconds.
Sounds like he actually was in Baku there.
Yeah.
Remember as a kid when Ireland would be playing in Albania or places like that grainy footage, and
call in on the phone.
Tony Cascarino maybe grabbing a kind of a smash and grab goal to win in Tirana in the old communist days. They were the days. But Gary sounds a bit like that this morning.
Yeah. Normally Skype is better than 1980s quality ISDN.
Normally.
Even 90s. What do you think is going to happen in this game?
It's hard. I think Gary's point is valid about defences. Maybe Arsenal might want a little bit more. Although do Arsenal really want anything? It's hard to call. I think it'll be a good game.
Okay, Gary's back. In terms of who wants it more, I think it definitely appears as if the Maurizio Sarri era is coming to a close, and that this is the last 24 hours of it. But where are we with Unai Emery one season in?
I think initially when he came in, I think it was always going to be tough in terms of the quality of the squad that he inherited. But I think at times I think he's done a really good job. He's changed everything in terms of discipline. He's brought up more fitness levels to Arsenal. They're more accountable for their performances. Tactically astute. I think he doesn't just play one certain way. He addresses who he's playing, the opposition, in a way that Wenger never did. But in terms of so many problems that he inherited, the only thing I will say is that he's failed to solve a lot of them, notably that defensive issue. But it's a difficult one. They don't have the financial muscle. He's inherited players who are not really good enough for Arsenal to be challenged at the top of the Premier League, and he's done as well as he can. There was a period there where they looked like they could finish third, and I would argue they're the 6th best team in the Premier League, yet they finished 5th. So you can look at it, and I think for both managers, I think we'll determine whether or not they've been successful by who wins this particular final.
It's weird that way, but it does define the season for both these managers. Yeah. Sarri surely can't continue on next season, though. I don't know if you saw the Marcos Alonso comments during the week about, he never played football, so it's kind of difficult for us to listen to what he has to say. But we got there because we're professionals. And you're like, if you're talking like that, I mean, that guy.
It's a typical one for that Chelsea changing room. We've seen it so often over the years. The only difference is that the likes of Alonso don't have the weight that Terry, if Lampard, those guys had before. Alonso's probably not happy because he's been discarded a little bit. But Sarri has definitely, his biggest problem is not necessarily his disconnection with the players, which is in stark contrast to what Klopp, Pochettino, Pep have, that they idolise their manager. He just doesn't have that connection. But more worryingly, he doesn't have the connection with the supporters. And they're a club of supporters who are used to being in crisis. They've seen managers come and go, but they've just not taken to him one bit, and I just can't see this continuing. And the very fact that he was so adamant about continuing this Sarri ball, and now the fact that he's changed, it shows that I just don't think it's a good marriage.
So, is Frank Lampard a realistic possibility for this, or is that just pie in the sky?
To be honest, I think it is a realistic one, but you're quite right to suggest why would you look at it bearing in mind his body of work. We've seen what's happened at Manchester United in terms of getting a fan's favourite back. I think Frank Lampard is probably destined for a top managerial career, but to give him the job one season in is a massive gamble. And I don't think you do it for any other reason than his connection with the club. I'm not discounting the fact that he has the ability to make it happen. He would bring Jody Morris back as a coach, who's obviously coached throughout the Chelsea ranks. But Chelsea will be very different next summer. Obviously, the fact that Hazard will leave, they might have to bring those young players through, the likes of Abraham from Aston Villa, the likes of Mason Mount back from Derby. Obviously, Hudson-Odoi will come back fitness. Loftus-Cheek's getting his game now. Chelsea's a very different club now, and it's probably the reason why Hazard will leave, because it's certainly not the club that he joined when he initially came in 7 years ago as Champions League winners.
Yeah, I actually feel like it's more likely than not that Frank Lampard will be the next manager at this stage.
It is absolutely absurd that Frank Lampard should even be talked about here. If you did a poll, Gary, right, this would be interesting now, and this just shows how stupid most people are and a lot of footballers are. If you did a poll and you're a Chelsea fan, who would you prefer to be the next boss, Frank Lampard or Rafa Benitez? It'll probably be 80% Lampard, right? 90, and that just shows how stupid people are.
Well, listen, Benitez has been there before, won the European Europa League with them, but that was an incredible decision to give him the job, bearing in mind the massive rivalry that they had, Chelsea, during that period in the Champions League with Liverpool. So there's nothing beyond this Chelsea hierarchy in terms of who they'll choose.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like there's a kind of a bit of a disconnect between Abramovich and the fans and the club at the minute, and actually getting back a fan's favourite like that would be a good way for him to rekindle his own interest in this thing that he spent so much money on.
I'm not. I mean, Gary mentioned Solskjaer. There would be obvious parallels. I think Solskjaer's CV was worse than Lampard's in terms of Lampard's only been there for such a short space of time and has done a good job. Solskjaer had done a sort of a patchy job at a couple of clubs, but he was a fan's favourite. But a job as big as Chelsea, you can't give it to, like Frank Lampard. You prove virtually nothing in one season of football. You have to assess things over a longer spell of time.
Yeah, we need to see how he evolves and develops. Can he
deal with crises and so forth?
Yeah, exactly. And can he improve players over a consistent period of time, as opposed to just that immediate first rush where it's like, oh, that guy's Frank Lampard, I'm really impressed with your playing.
Absolutely. For Frank Lampard, it'll be a massive season next year for him at Derby, because he used the loan system brilliantly well to produce a young, vibrant team, got them in the playoffs. But those players will go now, and it'll be a test now of his recruitment abilities, coaching ability, to see whether or not he can repeat that and get Derby into the playoffs.
How do these two teams match up then in terms of the style of play? And I know you expect goals at both ends, but certainly tactically and personnel-wise, do you give Chelsea just that little edge, given that they do have slightly better players at the moment?
I give Chelsea edge because they've got Hazard. I think he's a brilliant player. I think we've been blessed to see him in the Premier League. His stats are incredible. The very fact he didn't get in the Premier League team of the season is an absolute nonsense, bearing in mind the amount of goals he was involved in and other players getting in ahead of him. I don't see Arsenal having the ability to stop them, but that's been the case. Listen, Arsenal have only lost one of their last 8 meetings against Chelsea, so long gone are those days of Drogba bullying Chelsea. But still, I just look at Hazard as being the potential match winner. I'll be fascinated to see what Emery does again. I think the very fact that he often goes to a 5 to protect his team defensively kind of is one that never really I understand, to be perfectly honest, because if you haven't got 2 good centre-halves, why pick 3? And I understand that safety in numbers as such, but the very fact that if you often go to a 5, you end up having Kolasinac at wing-back, and he can't defend as a full-back, let alone a wing-back. So they'll be vulnerable there, especially when you think of the quality that Chelsea have in those second line of attack with the likes of Hazard, Willian, Pedro, those type of guys. I think Arsenal will probably look to stop Jorginho playing. I think a lot of teams have done that to stop that Sarri ball, but even Sarri now has missed out Jorginho quite a lot recently. I think his passing stats are well down since the League Cup final, where they have changed. They've gone more direct. They've defended deeper. They don't look to play so much football that don't really hurt people. They try and get the ball forward. So if you do that against Arsenal and don't give them time to get their defensive shape, you will create chances, there's no doubt.
The difference for Arsenal of being in the Champions League next season and not being in the Champions League,
massive.
It is, isn't it? Because it's a financial thing. It just releases it means that the hierarchy are happy to invest because they realise that there's extra revenue coming in automatically. And it's not like there's any benefit of losing tonight, because you still have to go on those foreign trips on Thursday nights in the Europa League, which is actually more draining than playing on the Tuesday or Wednesday when it comes to your next league game. So It's kind of a vicious circle. If you're trapped at this Europa League level, you can never break into the next tier.
And they've played 15 games this season now, and as of Chelsea, like, it's insane how big the Europa League is, and just attracting players as well, Gary. I mean, how big is this if you want to come to the Premier League next year?
Well, Arsenal making out that they've still got that kudos that they can attract people, bearing in mind they're in London and in the Premier League. I don't buy into it so much, because the very fact, if they don't win this and don't qualify for the Champions League, they're going to have to reduce their wages at a time when their rivals in the Premier League are going to start paying more. So the goal's going to be massive. Even in terms of the players they're linked to. If they get Champions League football, there's talk then that they can get Zaha from Crystal Palace. If they don't make it, then they're looking for Fraser from Bournemouth. So you can see the difference there. They have to find value in the transfer market. There's no doubt about it. They don't have that financial muscle. And, you know, that Europa League, that Thursday night football is often what Arsenal fans used to call Spurs' competition. But now look at Tottenham, they're in the Champions League final. So it is absolutely a dreadful time to be an Arsenal fan right now.
This summer is going to be really interesting and obviously so much depends on whether or not they are in the Champions League, but in terms of what Emery can do to completely revamp the squad and get his players in. So it's been a management job of the resources that he, as you've already talked about, inherited with a few signings. But this is the summer where we get to judge him, where he's had his scouts have been working with the information that he has about his current playing squad, and he gets to tell everybody, this is exactly the type of player I want.
Well, I always felt that this was going to be a massive summer for Arsenal, and bearing in mind they're putting that infrastructure, not just for the manager and what players they could get, but behind the scenes. But then Gazidis makes the decision to get the manager in and departs himself for AC Milan, and learnt nothing from the debacle of what's happened at United with Ferguson and Gill leaving at the same time. So he's really left Arsenal high and dry. Then we see Mislintat coming in from the Bundesliga, who's considered this diamond eye of a recruitment person. He's been and gone. So they've still got problems behind the scenes, and that's the biggest worry, is that there won't be any really thought process in terms of what they want to do in terms of getting Arsenal back to the top. There is value out there in terms of players available. You may look at the likes of Fabian Delph from City, who's available on a free transfer. He'll give you legs and energy, and without that massive financial investment. So they've got to be really acute in the transfer market.
Yeah, okay. A brief word about the Champions League final then. This remove of what are we in the middle of the week, and it's obviously Saturday evening. The Harry Kane question hangs heavy over what's going to happen. I find it very hard to believe that Harry Kane is going to be match fit, and so therefore I wouldn't start him irrespective of what he says.
Never played the game though.
I've never played the game, it's true. What would you do, Gary?
Well, listen, I'd agree with you. Listen, if you to speak to Harry Kane, he will convince you, and he'll be telling his teammates, his managers, I'm fit, I'm the best shape I've ever been. Of course he will, because he wants to play in the Champions League final. Pochettino's too cute for that. He'll recognise whether or not he is. Listen, he's put him in earlier than most people would have assumed, because he's aware of the stats. He'll have done all the research in terms of what numbers he's hitting throughout training, whether or not he is there. But obviously the motion of the whole tie. Listen, when Son plays without Harry Kane, he's a different player. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kane doesn't start but makes an impact off the bench.
That makes sense, doesn't it? That's the right way to do this. It's not like you don't have players who are in form, who are capable of leading the line. It's not like it was 2 seasons ago when nobody was playing well alongside Harry Kane, and it was Harry Kane. It was the Harry Kane team, as Pep Guardiola called it. It's not that anymore.
No, it isn't. Listen, it seems a crazy thing to say that without Harry Kane and all these goals, that Tottenham have actually got better results as such, but they have. And the very fact that Son is a different play, it becomes slightly marginalised when he's in the team with Harry Kane. He's got a different role to play. So Pochettino will be aware of that. He'll know that Son's energy will be needed against Liverpool in terms of trying to exploit the spaces that Liverpool's fullbacks will vacate. You'll need energy to do that. I'm not sure if Kane has that for a full 90 minutes, and so probably will be introduced later on.
Is it insane to think that Spurs might consider cashing in on Harry Kane this summer?
Oh, no, I can't see it. I'll tell you why, because I think he's desperate to be at Tottenham, to be the captain. I know they say he's one of their own, which is strange, bearing in mind he was at Arsenal as a kid and was an Arsenal supporter. But I can't see that happening, no. I know like Real Madrid are having a major reboot. They want to get players in. They've been identified as getting Hazard in. Whether or not they could get Harry Kane to lead the line remains to be seen. But I think Harry Kane will certainly be at Tottenham for the next couple of seasons, bearing in mind that new stadium as well.
One last question here is about the impact that a training ground blowout has on a team. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? I have vague recollections of when you guys got to, where was the training camp after Saipan? Was it was in Japan? Doesn't Robbie Keane smack Niall Quinn across the face?
Oh, cry! I had no idea which way you were going to go there. I thought it was just going to be the age-old Saipan.
No. After that, it's like the lesser-known internal spat. It was like there was definitely. I don't know if it's the snappers called it or something, but and it was all grand. No one, it was just that was Robbie being Robbie.
Well, listen, if it did happen, I cannot for the life of me remember it. I'll be honest with you.
Does it matter? Do these things matter? Do you?
No, they don't. Listen, I've had you've had.
Go on. You were about to tell us a specific one.
Listen, I've had it with managers. Well, physical confrontations. It's just part and parcel of it. The big thing is can you just put it to the side, or does it linger? That's the problem you have as a player with other players or with your manager. But at times, you've got something to say. The other person maybe has something, and just settle it as quick as you can. Yeah.
So you got physical with managers and lived to tell the tale.
Listen, it's a long career.
Come on, Gary.
Listen, you can see the scar, so listen, I'm still here.
All right, good stuff, Gary. Thanks really for joining us.
Thank you very much, guys. Good luck.
He's passed the book there, hasn't he?
There you go. Refusing to tell which of the managers he popped right in the kisser.